For years, I believed that when my adult children made decisions I didn't understand, it meant I had failed as a mother. Every choice that didn't align with what I thought was best became evidence that something had gone terribly wrong in how I had raised them. I'm Jill Pack. Welcome to the Seasons of Joy podcast. This is episode number 172, entitled The Story I'm Telling Myself. Today, we are talking about the importance of examining the stories that we tell ourselves about what other people's choices mean about us, about them, and about our relationships. I have worked with many midlife women who struggle with the choices of the people in their lives. They may feel devastated because their children are making choices that go against what they've been taught, or they feel hurt by the choices of their partner or friend, and they just don't understand why this person would do this to them. Do you hear it? Do it to them. In the case of the parent, they don't just disagree with their children's choices, they are making their children's choices about them. The parents are telling themselves stories that their children's decisions are a rejection of the parent's values, a statement about their parenting, and even a deliberate act against the family. Or maybe your spouse is choosing something that you disagree with, and you start to make it mean that they don't care about you. The story you begin to tell yourself is this decision is a rejection of you, a statement about you as a spouse, and even that they're intentionally trying to hurt you. Or maybe it's a friend who doesn't do something that you believe they should do, and you start to make it mean that they don't care about you because you've shared this with them. And the story you begin to tell yourself is that their choice is a rejection of you, that if they cared about you, they would do things differently, and even that they are purposefully ignoring you. But what if none of that was true? I remember when one of my children told me that they were not going to continue to go to college and finish their degree. My immediate internal response was panic. The story I started telling myself went something like this. They're being irresponsible. They're going to struggle financially. They didn't listen to anything we taught them about security and planning and education. What will people think about them? Or how we raise them? What if they fail? Notice how quickly I made their educational choice about me, about my fears, about my reputation as a parent. The story I was telling myself about their choice was actually revealing more about my context filter or the lens through which I see life, rather than about their decision. The stories we tell ourselves have three parts: the facts, the meaning, and the story. So the facts, it's what actually happened. It's the boring part of the story. The meaning, we decide what it all means. And the story is the narrative we create to connect the facts and the meaning. So let's break down my experience around my child's educational decision. The fact, my child decided to leave college and not get their degree. The meaning I assigned to it. This means they're being irresponsible and didn't learn our family values about education. And the story I created. They are making a mistake that will hurt them, and it reflects poorly on me and on them. I need to convince them that they're wrong. But what if I separated the fact from the meaning and the story? The fact is going to stay the same. They decided to not continue with college. But an alternative meaning could mean that they're brave enough to pursue their passion, or they're growing into their own person, or they trust themselves enough to figure things out. The new story could be they're making a choice that feels right for them. This is about their journey, not my parenting. I can support them while still having my own concerns. Same fact, completely different experience for both of us. When we are so stuck in our stories, especially the ones that make us the victim, we fall into what I call the story spiral. It looks something like this. Stage 1, you create the story. Their choice means something bad about me or them. Stage 2, you begin to gather evidence. We look for proof that our story is true, and we ignore evidence that contradicts it. Stage 3, emotional amplification. The story creates strong emotions within us, things like fear, anger, disappointment, which we then use as evidence that the story must be true. Stage 4, we have reactive behavior. We act from the story rather than from love. We lecture, we withdraw, or we try to control. And stage 5, relationship damage. Our reactive behavior pushes the people in our lives, which becomes new evidence for our original story. I was completely stuck in this spiral with the college situation. The more I tried to convince my child that they were making a mistake, the less they shared with me about their plans. Their withdrawal then became evidence in my mind that they knew they were wrong and that they couldn't handle me being right. So how do we get out of this story spiral? We learn to become the author of our own narrative instead of the victim of it. Step 1, we've got to catch the story. Noticing when you're telling yourself a story about what someone else's behavior means. The clue is usually in the emotions. If you're feeling hurt, angry, or disappointed by someone else's choice, there's likely a story underneath. Step 2, you need to separate the facts from the fiction. Ask yourself, what actually happened here versus what am I making it mean? We want to separate those two. Now, this isn't about dismissing your concerns. It's about getting clear on what's real versus what's our interpretation. And then step 3, get curious about other stories. What are some other alternatives? What else could this mean? What would someone who loves this person unconditionally assume about their choice? What story would create more connection instead of more distance? And step 4, choose your story with intention. You get to decide what story serves your relationship better, not what story feels most familiar or most justified. What story creates the relationship you actually want? So here are some examples of story shifts that can help you transform your relationships and create greater connection. Maybe your old story is they're not calling me enough because they don't care about family anymore. A new story could be they're building their own life, which is exactly what I raised them to do. And when they call, I'll make it so enjoyable, they'll want to call more. Maybe your old story is they chose that partner to rebel against everything we taught them. The new story, they're choosing someone who makes them happy. I don't have to understand their choice to support their happiness. Old story, they're making financial decisions that prove they didn't learn how to be responsible. New story, they're learning to manage money through their own experience. I can be a resource if they ask, but I don't need to be their teacher anymore. Or maybe your old story is they don't make time for me because they don't care about me. New story, this isn't really about me at all. They're navigating their life the best way they know how, and I can focus on being fully present and enjoy the time that I do get to spend with them. Sometimes the old stories feel safer. We feel more empowered with the old story, but they make things harder. If other people's choices are about us, then we have some control. If we can just explain the right way, fix their thinking, or show them their mistakes, we can prevent bad outcomes. But when I was trying to control my adult children's stories, it was actually preventing them from learning how to write their own. When I stopped making their choices about my parenting success or failure, they started asking for my perspective again. This wasn't because they had to, because they wanted to. The same is true with my marriage. When I stopped making my partner's choices about me as his spouse, I could show up differently. I didn't have to blame him or criticize him or defend myself or give him the silent treatment in order to control his actions so that I could feel better. By deciding what stories I want playing in my head, I free myself to love others well. I get to show up as the person I want to be, regardless of what the other person is doing. Does this mean we always just write a happy story? No, of course not. But by taking the time to examine our stories and being really honest with ourselves, we give space to be more honest in our relationships. By removing the drama, this helps us create emotions within ourselves that fuel behaviors that will build connection instead of create disconnection. Sometimes it does include having a conversation, a hard conversation, but we approach that conversation from a totally different emotional place when we pay attention to the stories that are playing in our heads. So your challenge this week is pay attention to the stories you're telling yourself about the choices of others. When you notice a strong emotional reaction to something they've shared or done, pause and ask yourself, what story am I telling myself about what this means? Then ask, what story would someone who completely trusted this person tell about the same situation? You don't have to believe the new story immediately. You probably won't, but you want to just notice how different stories feel different in your body and think about the different possibilities that could come for a greater connection in your relationships. The stories you tell yourselves about the people in your life and their choices have more power over your relationship than their actual choices do. When I finally understood this, really understood this, my relationships with the people in my life changed. I stopped being the victim of other people's decisions and became the author of my own experience with them. I stopped waiting for them to make different choices so that I could feel better about our relationship. And I started choosing thoughts and stories that created the connection I wanted right now. This doesn't mean I don't have concerns sometimes. It doesn't mean I agree with every choice they make. But it means I've learned that my love for them and my peace of mind don't have to depend on their decisions aligning with my preferences. The people in your life, your parents, your children, your friends, your neighbors, are going to write their own stories, make their own choices, and learn their own lessons, whether you stress about it or not. The only story you get to control is the one you tell yourself about what their choices mean. So I invite you to choose the story that allows you to love them well. Choose the story that keeps your heart open. Choose the story that creates space for connection instead of distance. You are not the victim of other people's choices. You are the author of your own experience. And that, my friend, is incredibly empowering. Thank you for joining me today. If this episode was helpful to you, I'd love for you to share it with another person who might need to hear this message. Until next time, remember to choose the story that creates the relationship you actually want.